Hello and
Definitely messed that up.
welcome to
Yep.
First Geek 411. This is a very special episode. And with me, as always, is my best man, Chris Nicolay. Chris, how are you doing today?
I am good. Although I'm messing up our thing here. I'm good.
You gotta believe. You gotta believe.
I believe that there's going to be mistakes, but we'll get through it. We'll be fine.
Believe in the me that believes in you, Chris.
I already messed up. We're good.
I still believe in you,
I know.
though. Like I said, we got a very special episode this week. We are chatting our top 10 favorite cards from Commander Legends, the latest supplemental Magic the Gathering set. And Chris, I always love these shows. Um, they're always just like conversations that we would do all the time. And now we just get to chat about it and have images on stream and all those things. And
Yes.
before we get into our favorite cards, listeners, as always, you can find us on our social media at OneGeek411. You can join our Discord server if you want to chat between shows. Send us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com and check out the show notes on our website, onegeek411.com. You can watch live on our Twitch each Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time and find the videos on our YouTube after the fact. You can also rate and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. So, with that, Chris, as we said, this is Commander Legends. For the listeners at home or wherever it is that they are listening, what is Commander Legends?
So, Commander Legends is a sealed pack set of cards designed for Commander. So, but they're designed to draft together in such a way that you can build a sealed Commander deck, possibly. Um, I don't know. This is a very interesting set because usually we see Commander products. So we see pre-constructed Commander decks. Now we're just getting Commander packs in a crazy set that has some crazy reprints, but also just a ton of awesome new cards
Right.
dedicated, made for Commander.
And I think that's one of the most interesting things. Like you said, that typically we get Commander products, meaning Commander decks. This time, it's this draft 20 card booster packs where you are basically supposed to draft. I believe it's still a 60 card
Yes.
commander deck. Um, and so, yeah, it's like that's super unique, very different than what we're used to. I kind of feel like because they did this as booster packs, we got a lot bigger reprints than what we would have if we would have gotten commander decks. But
Oh,
maybe
for
that's
sure.
just
But I think because it is a packed set, they can get away with because it's not like a guarantee. So that ultimately, because of there's that chance in that loot type system, that they can include bigger cards like Mana Drain
mhm,
to name one of the big reprints in this set, or
right.
Vampire Tutor, or and just because yeah, it keeps because it's a chance system. So you buy the pack, if you get it, you have value, guaranteed. But I'm so stoked for this.
So I guess let's discuss the mechanics and then we'll get into our favorite cards. Um, the biggest, I guess, returning mechanic is designed to kind of facilitate that draft. And that is the partner mechanic, which a certain one of us has gone on record saying is the worst thing for Commander ever. Um,
Not
and
me.
so it was indeed me. And so I will say, oh, I should say what partner is before I go on my rant. So partner is a mechanic that lets you have two cards as your commander, and your deck shares their color identity. Because unlike normal Magic and Commander, you can only play cards that match the identity of your commanders. Um, and so this lets you have two. And my biggest complaint was that the first time when we got partner commanders, there's a radically different power level
Amongst
between
some
the
of them,
partners.
which
Um,
I would agree with, like for sure. But I don't think the mechanic itself is bad.
yeah, I mean it's hard to differentiate when every card just has partner with Thrasios, and
True.
so
But
um,
then again, I play a drastically different commander than most people.
right. And so I agree that the idea of partner is really cool and kind of with this set, I definitely think they redeemed it. I loved partner with because you actually got like flavorful commanders that go together.
Those
Um,
were really
I
cool.
yeah, I get why they didn't do that for this set, but I wish they did. Because I just like that so much. But alas, um, Chris, what is one of our other mechanics from this set?
Encore.
Mm-hmm.
Encore is a mechanic with it's on creature cards. Essentially, has an amount. Exile this card from your graveyard. So, so you exile the creature from your graveyard. Then for each opponent, you create a token of a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They have haste, and you sacrifice them at the beginning of next end step. Kind of cool.
I really like this mechanic. I don't necessarily know how much it's going to um, see play outside of like draft because a lot of the encore cards are just super expensive to encore. But I'm a big fan of pretty much any mechanic that scales with the more opponents you have.
Right. And for the most part, it's like exclusively a black ability, I think.
I think it's in all of them, but I could be wrong.
No, it isn't all of them. Well, I've seen three colors so far. Okay. I think Encore has the most iteration because it makes the most sense in black. Kind of in a sense. It's kind of like a recursion, a quick one turn recursion, which is like, I think it's a cool ability to have on a card. It's not worth building around, but it's nice if you need to use it. So
I
it's a
can
nice
I agree.
bonus, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't build a deck on Encore deck per se.
Mm-hmm. A returning mechanic that we got is Monarch, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah,
This
you
is
are.
from Conspiracy 2. And so Queen Marchesa, Long May She Reign. There's a promo in this set. So the way that Monarch works is typically something will enter the battlefield and it'll give you Monarch. And then at your end step, you draw a card. And if an opponent deals combat damage to you, they become the Monarch.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a really cool ability. It's a really cool card draw. It keeps people having to go to combat and attacking. Um, and yeah, it's a
It's
a
a
great
good
ability.
political. It is, especially like seeing it. So like now that's more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I know like in our play groups we did some things where we ultimately did Monarch just as an automatic piece. Whoever got first blood became the Monarch, just because there's still not a ton of cards in there that was consistent enough to include. So we wanted to figure out a way. We like the mechanic that we want to include it. Um, Kind of just in our general play. So occasionally we'll throw that rule in there when we want to play that way, just as a
Yeah,
little homebrew rule.
I know I've heard a lot of people that have basically like argued that you should start with like the fourth player being the Monarch and that they should get to draw an extra card at the end of their turn.
That's not a bad rule either. That's a fun way to do it too. Just like yeah, the whoever goes last in your cycle. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Because they're at a pretty big disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. And then Chris, I'll give you this next one because we're getting a little bit of tribal in this set. What do we got?
Tribal elves. Yeah, lots of them. We're talking about a few in our sets today because they're obviously going to be just automatically at the top of some of my lists. And tribal elves because I I'll I have a few decks built that have like a lot of elf synergies to begin with. I have one completely dedicated where I refuse to throw anything that's not an elf with the exception of a couple cards. And even then, they're like honorary elves. And it's not Craterhoof. Craterhoof is not in my elf deck. Despite what everyone tells me that he's an
Craterhoof
honorary
is
elf.
the best elf, though.
I mean, he's really good, and he really should be in there. And my deck would probably be a lot more formidable if he was. But no, I'm thinking like Nylea is in there, but she's a god. It's just picture as an elf god. Boom. um, and I also threw Liliana in there, but she's
Just want to
obviously
do a
not enough.
quick
But
chat call out. Jarrett from the Infinity Bros is in chat, and he says that they house rule that the fourth player gets Monarch.
which such a good rule. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fun mechanic, especially in multiplayer games like that. It keeps the politics moving, and it kind of spreads the love a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone fighting for that advantage in the card draw.
Yeah.
Super nice.
And while we'll get into it a bit more with the cards, while every color does get Monarch, I really like that since it's combat focused, it rewards red and white more, since those are typically like smaller, quicker creatures. And so you can be getting Monarch quicker if you are playing those colors, which struggle with card draw and
Yep,
commander. So
exactly.
I,
That's
I
what's
really
going to be
like that.
what I mentioned. Yeah.
Um, then our last mechanic, and this is a big set, so there's a lot of cards with like one-off mechanics and things like that, or cards that have a mechanic but don't have the name, that kind of thing. Um, so our last named mechanic is Cascade, which whenever it's on a spell, and when you cast it, you'll reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a non-land permanent with less CMC, converted mana cost, and then you get to cast that card for free. And then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. And so it's a very fun mechanic. The Cascade cards in this deck are very expensive. And so,
But it, like, we'll talk. I have one in my top list, and it's just because it's like, this is so far and above what you need.
yeah, I'm super excited about this, talking about that one. So I guess with that, Chris, for the listeners, if you want to let us know what your favorite cards are, we'll make sure to call those out. If nothing else, once we get through our lists. But we will make sure to do that. You can comment in the YouTube comments down below what your favorite cards are and what you're excited about. And we'll try to throw a link to the full set in our show notes, so that people can take a look at all the cards. And so, oh, and then if you are buying Commander Legends products and you crack any cool cards, you need to send them pictures of us, or send pictures of them to us. There we go. So that we can celebrate with you that you opened cool cards. So,
Yeah, and we might be even, because I have pre-ordered a box.
mm-hmm.
So we do have hopefully a day where Cameron and I will sit there and I'll crack the packs and we'll discuss the cards I get. So
Yeah.
that'll be a fun way, and we'll also I'll maybe we'll even tally up the cost and see what if we broke even. We're gonna steal the professor's idea.
Yeah, do the booster box game.
Yep. Except for I won't buy another box. Maybe I will. We'll see.
So with that, Chris, behind the scenes, you have all of our images set up and ready to go. Who is going first?
You are.
Okay. So my first card is War Room, which is the one land I think on our lists. And so War Room is a colorless land. So tap, add colorless mana, and then 3 tap, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, draw a card. So I really like how simple this land is. And I really like that it rewards card draw in 1 and 2 color decks. Whereas obviously that life loss is going to add up more and more the more colors you're playing. And I will say though, it sure would be a shame if a certain someone's favorite commander was 3 colors and wanted to lose life and liked drawing cards. So
Marchesa.
yes. So, but with that said, I do think that this card is pretty much an auto include in any one color deck. And Jarrett in chat says so good in mono, anything, especially white. That's exactly it. It's great in any color, but especially that white that needs that card draw. White did get some good cards that kind of helped it with its color issues, and at least from a monocolored perspective. But I really think that this is an auto include in any one monocolor deck and probably any 2 color deck going forward.
I don't know. Maybe not as much as in blue, just because blue does that it so much anyway. Don't need it on the land card as much. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't have its place, but it's definitely offers great utility for certain, especially like I think it's going to be definitely as they've mentioned, as you previously mentioned, white is going to have a great day. Also, any deck that, as you are running uses life as a kind of a utility, or ultimately wants to have slightly like a lower life total anyway. Um, it's a great fixer for sure.
Yeah. And Chris, what do you got for your number one?
Right away, I'm going with my mono white legendary creature. That's a mythic, Achroma Vision of Ixidor. Cost 5 and 2 white. It is a 6/6 with flying, first strike, vigilance, and trample. It also has partner, just throwing that out there. But it's really this big block of text that matters.
Yeah, this middle is quite a feat.
Which this is something that White's been doing weird. Like they do these things so much. It's just keyword vomit though. So at the beginning of each combat until end of turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, protection, reach, trample, vigilance, and partner. What?
Yeah. So basically this card always attacks as an 11/11.
Sorry, each other.
No, sorry,
creature.
each other. Sorry,
so
I
not
said that
itself.
wrong.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
yes. Unfortunately,
yeah.
Achroma does not automatically get its +4/+4. But you get cards like, was it Ildrick or whatever?
Odric
Uldrick.
from the OG. He's a core set, right?
Yes. No, not Corset.
He's from Innistrad.
Yeah.
Flavor, but is he?
I think
is that
it was
what the actual?
Shadows
It
of
is.
Innistrad, wasn't it?
No, the OG one. I might be thinking of a different one.
The newest one was
the newest one.
Shadows of
Old
Innistrad.
Uldrick is from M13.
Okay.
But that one's not the one we're talking about.
But yeah, there are, and then not only that, you can also splash in, so you can start getting certain colors out. But like, there's so many of the there's white legendary creatures that look somewhere and give your creatures the keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind the last, what set did we have where we had keyword tokens?
Ikoria
had keyword tokens, and okay, so I mean this is just crazy. So you can start giving everything all the keywords and just hit them harder. Or then obviously you can even build kind of around the synergy with another partner commander and see if you can really bump up that commander and just get in there for that commander damage as kind of a secondary utility. Not only does that commander obviously have all the keywords, but also is going to get all the +1/+1 during combat.
Right. So this is the type of partner that is basically a sorcery spell where you play this for 7 mana and then you probably should attack someone for lethal commander damage.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing this deck right, like I would guess that typically if you are not killing someone the turn you cast Achroma, you're probably not winning that game.
Because it's a good way to also get eyes on you and get targeted out.
Yeah.
Granted, then again, if you're playing an aggro deck, typically where you're commander based anyway, trying to get that commander damage in, oftentimes you're not going to win the entire match anyway. Granted, this isn't super aggro and super fast in this sense, but you know, I just care about getting one guy out, right? As long as I'm not last.
Yeah, if you're not last, you're first.
Yep.
Is that
Yep, that's my motto.
But Chris, what if I wanted to get a bunch of those keywords on different creatures so that I could, make them go crazy with my Achroma?
It's
what would I
like
do?
There's like a partner card for Achroma. Well, a card named for this character.
Mm-hmm. So in this set, a bunch of legendary creatures have a card that goes with them. And our next one is my pick, is Achroma's Will. And so this card has, it's an instant for 3 and a white. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both. So the first part is creatures you control will gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. So that's your combat focused one. And then the next one is creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn, which also works for combat, but also is a really solid defense if you get attacked by a bunch of creatures. You just get to trade off with all of theirs and gain a bunch of life. So
I like this. Unfortunately, for it to really pair, you either have to obviously respond to a Chroma's trigger entering combat to get all of the keywords on your creatures before Chroma's resolves,
yeah.
or cast it during your first main. Not bad.
Right.
But also,
and
yeah,
even,
in general, a great response card.
Yeah.
Combat.
And even if you're not playing it with a Chroma, like I think this is just pretty much this is a solid card, and I guess I would assume will probably be a staple in any white based creature attacky deck. Because it's not that expensive at 4, and
no,
like just the utility it offers is crazy,
especially for like preserving your board state. I mean, those types of things, especially with the indestructible as one of the options, huge to have available. And yeah, I think this card's pretty much stable in anything that runs white at this point, just because that's what white does well. And fortunately, what white does well, it does really well. It just doesn't do things that are necessary for winning consistently really well.
Yeah, it's a good way to say
it. It's really inconvenient though once it gets going.
I hope you're ready for this in Edgar Markov, Chris. I can't wait to give all my vampires all of these things.
Okay.
With that, Chris, what is your number 2?
My next card that we're discussing for my list is Apex Devastator.
I love this card.
So it is a 10 cost Chimera Hydra green, or so it's 8 and 2 green, and it's a 10/10 Chimera Hydra. But it has the keywords Cascade, 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 Cascade.
I'm so excited. This is the Timmiest of Timmy cards.
This card is just crazy. So it's like, okay, pay 10, get a 10/10. Granted, it doesn't do any of the other like Chimera Hydra things. Fortunately, it's not like an X or anything like that. But then it gets 4 Cascade triggers. So you are exiling cards off. You exile cards off the top of your deck 4 times until you find a card that costs less than your 10. So pretty much anything in your deck.
Right.
Fortunately, that means you can whiff a lot, but you do it 4 times. So I mean, hopefully you get something good.
Right. And I think this card is going to kind of be best if you build it in a shell, kind of like, I mean, obviously this isn't legendary, so it can't be your commander, but if you build it in a shell kind of like Maelstrom Wanderer, where the idea is to ramp into more mana to recast Maelstrom Wanderer. So you just play this in a deck, and then you just plan on bouncing it to your hand. And then you just recast it the next turn and get 4 things for 10 mana, and then you bounce it to your hand, and then you kind of just do that over and over again, and that's just how you generate your value.
Yeah. You could also just like big green things, because that's what green does well too. It's not like you can't fill this deck with expensive things to begin with, so you can get maximum value if you are lucky enough when you get those triggers, or if you can manage to control the top of your library a little more. So it has, it's just a fun, big, stompy green thing that does something fun in your deck. It's not great, but it has a lot of potential if you abuse it right.
We're going to keep calling out Jarrett and Shaq. He keeps up coming up with great ideas. He said Joda is going to love this. So Joda is a legendary creature where you can pay Wooburg, 1 of each color, to cast a spell instead of its mana cost. So you can cast this for 5, but it's still a 10 CMC card. Yep, and so you still get those cascades. That's a really good point.
Also, like don't go overboard on your cascade triggers. Let me just throw that out there. It's a really long turn. And people will hate you for it just because it's a long turn. Doesn't matter if you're doing cool things. Just remember that. It's like if you build a cascade deck, it gets crazy.
My next card is also a green card. It's almost like we planned this a little bit. Um, a little bit. And that's Court of Bounty. So the court cycle is there's one in each color from this set. They're all enchantments, and then when they enter, you become the monarch. So this is the green member of the cycle, so it costs 2 green. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land into play or land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you're the monarch, instead, you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is just awesome. Um, and I got to say, I love this whole cycle. I think that like it was hard to pick one of these. I honestly think I could talk about why I like all 5 of this cycle. But in the end, I feel like this is doing the things you most want to do in Commander. And that's if you're behind, you want to put lands in the play so you can get ahead. Then when you're ahead, you want to cement your lead. And so you just put those big stompy creatures in the play
for free.
For free. And then you just, I don't know, run a haste enabler and attack somebody. Like combine it like with literally any red enchantment that gives haste. And you get these giant creatures, beat down your opponents. And it's a trigger, so it can't be counterspelled, which is awesome for this. Again, exactly what green wants to be doing.
There are things that do counter triggered abilities. Far and few between, though.
Right. Comparatively speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very situational that if you have one of the 3 cards that does it.
Yeah.
In your hand in a commander deck out of 100 cards, you know. But yes.
And I definitely say, people, if you're listening, you have a favorite deck, go find the court that fits in that deck. It probably is really good.
We should say that this does not pair well with our previous card.
This is true. It is indeed a non-bow.
Yes.
Since you don't cast the card, you just
Granted, you get a free 10/10, so that's
right.
I mean, nothing wrong with a free 10/10. But you do not get your 4 cascade triggers if you cheat in Apex Devastator. You have to cast it somehow.
Yeah. Chris, what's your next card?
I forgot. Now my tabs are out of order, guys. So I'm just gonna call one. My next card is Siani, Eye of the Storm. Then, so he is a 3 and a blue. This is one of the uncommon legendary creatures, and I love that Wizards is doing more of this. And there's a lot in this set, so you can obviously seal a deck or draft a deck in the commander format. But it's a Jin Monk. It's a 3/2 with flying. But whenever Siani, Eye of the Storm attacks, scry X, where X is the number of attacking creatures with flying. Also with partner.
Yep.
I just like scrying. And then, sorry, I should mention there's also a legendary creature in blue. So you can just go mono blue here. That instead, whenever you would scry, instead draw that many cards.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I gotta say this card is also one of my favorite arts from this set. I just think it's so cool. I love the Jins from Tarkir.
Yeah. This is a fun card, and it's not like crazy powerful. It's just like this is kind of blue I like kind of thing. That's one reason why I wanted to put it in my set. There's actually really good blue things. There's really obnoxious blue things in this set, but there are some. Mana
Drain.
Yeah, Mana Drain I love, but I hate. It's more so because I know that decks that run Mana Drain also have like every other high expensive cost counter spell that I'm like, I don't want to deal with kind of situation. But Mana Drain's a great reprint, not gonna lie. But yeah, just scrying and drawing cards. That's what I like about blue. Get your counters out of here.
Yeah. Speaking of blue, my next card is Hull Breacher, which is my Merfolk for the set. So Hull Breacher is 2 and a blue from Merfolk Pirate, that pirate sub theme in the and tribal theme in the set. It says if an opponent would draw a card except for the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure token. So I really like this effect. I like that it gives you treasure. I like that compared to a certain black card that's in the set, um, that I don't think made either of our lists. Um, and I really like that this card, like, it gets you a treasure, which is good, but it's not insane. Like, and it doesn't punish that first draw. It doesn't lock someone out of the game. Um, and so I really like that about this card. And it's also like, as much as to Chris's point, we don't like blue ramping because then they counter all of our things. Blue doesn't have a lot of ways to ramp that aren't rocks. And so I like having a little other way to be generating mana.
Yeah, it's really good against those those decks that just generate a lot of card draw value. Because that gets scary too when someone has a consistent grip of 7 cards if they don't have unlimited hand size already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I like it because I don't build a lot of card draw decks, so I'm like, okay,
yeah,
let's slow everyone down. And then if I can also get my a-hole breacher out, then we can limit you, and then everyone just draws a one card.
Everybody wins because no one wins.
Yep. Guarantee that one you could probably cast your one card that you drew. If everyone's just top decking, oh yeah.
Yeah. But I really like this card for a more political control deck, which is how I try to play my Dragon Lord Ojutai, which of course is actually a blue-white dragon tribal. But I really like this in that where it's like I can cast this and I can prevent this other person from drawing a bunch of cards. But like, is that really where we want to be? Because now no one can draw extra cards except me. Like, is that what people want? And then you just cast it anyway. And
well, I like it. It's a great like. Also, you respond to someone out with like Ristic Study. It's like, okay, I'm gonna cast a lot of spells this turn, so
and I will not be paying the one.
And I will not be paying. So you draw that one card, and then I'm gonna create a bunch of tokens.
Got him.
Yes. Gladly. Or my favorite is if this is your first card you cast when they have Ristic Study on your turn. And then the effect is in place. You don't pay the one. The effect's in place.
Because they would draw before it enters play.
Yeah, but it's the first card they drew this turn.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Since the ability doesn't say since it's in play or anything like that, the ability says this turn. It looks back to the beginning of the turn even after it's in play.
Yes, but you would not get that treasure, but it would count from then on, yes.
Well, yeah, because, in general, you're not going to pay the one because they're going to get one card draw regardless because it's a separate turn. Since they haven't, you get what
Just
I'm
kidding.
saying.
Reading the card explains the card.
Yep.
So I missed this. And so they draw in each of their draw steps.
Oh.
So it completely shuts off Ristic Study. So that's even better.
It's even better than I thought.
Yep. And that's why you listen instead of just reading through the card like I did.
I mean, sometimes because you miss, you have to pay so much attention. Magic is so...
Yep. Deanna and I were joking before the cast tonight that Magic is just nerds that got super into English and math and decided to put it all together. Because there's so much stuff like that where it's like this couple words completely changes the card.
It's the world's most complex game. Yeah. I like Whole Breacher even more now because screw Ristic Study. Especially those those early turns. You're just like, man, I can't even cast my ramp. Someone gets Whole Breach out. Thank you.
With that, Chris, what is your next card?
My next card, because I just, the uncommon commanders in this set are just fun. I picked Falthus Shadowcat Familiar. This isn't a great card by any means. But it is a legendary Nightmare Cat, costs 2 and a black, and it's a 2/2. But it says commanders you control have Menace and Death Touch.
Yes. I really like this card.
Also, I like the art, but it can be a commander for one. So I mean, it's a 2/2 with menace and death touch for a 3 cost potentially from your command zone,
Mm-hmm.
which means it can take care of 2 creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, either you're going to get in for 2 commander damage, or you're going to take care of at least 2 of their creatures for removal. Possibly, depends. Obviously, there's situations where it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Um, but also just that utility wise, giving like it's one of those all the creatures that they did where it's like, hey, if your commander has this now, or if your commander's in play, it does this. This is nice. It's just a blanket statement. Hey, your commanders now have menace and death touch. If you have partner commanders, that's 2 commanders that automatically get menace and death
Mm-hmm.
touch if they're out on play, or it's giving himself, as we mentioned. But I just like this card. It's not great, but good utility.
Mm-hmm. My next card. We're entering the phase of my list where I accidentally picked all white cards. So my first one is another uncommon commander, and that's Kelith, Sunmare Familiar, which is 1 and a white for a legendary creature horse. So shout out for another legendary horse.
Well,
Or I guess the only legendary
the
horse. We
only
finally got
legendary
one.
horse. We finally got a legendary horse creature, so now you can build that horse tribal,
Yep.
and you can also have multiple commanders.
Multiple commanders. Yes. And so Kelith has when a creature or a commander you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Partner, and then is a 1/1. So if you play Kelith on 2, attack on 3, it's a 2/2 for 2, which is pretty good. And then it kind of just has that +1/+1 counter synergy. And that's always a good way. It's always a good way to keep your commanders relevant if they can keep growing. And so you can kind of attack into the person, even if they have chump blocks. You kind of just keep growing your commanders. So
yeah, another way to just get a 1/1 counter on Atraxa too.
got him.
And then you get so obviously vigilance and okay, we'll get that 1/1 counter end of turn. Proliferate. Boom. Got him. Grows Atraxa really fast. If you go for that +1/+1 synergy with her. Depends on how you build her, but
Mm-hmm. Chris, what do you got?
my next card is a non-legendary creature, but is a rare. It is Flamekin Herald. Flamekin Herald is a 3/2 for 3. It's a 2 and a red. It's an elemental wizard. And commander spells you have you cast have Cascade.
I really like this card.
It's like, okay. Especially in red. Cascade's such a wonderful mechanic, ultimately. I really just want to throw this in Ilharg. Because I'm going to be cheating stuff in the play regardless.
Yeah.
And so like I can actually get some regular board state out using Flamekin. Or, anytime I do decide to finally officially cast a creature or anything like that. But just being able to get a little more bonus off of recasting Ilharg. Granted, she probably pairs with like the cheaper red commanders than Ilharg, but I like this idea.
Yeah. And I think somewhere you want to be with a card like this is play this on 3, turn 4, play a commander, turn 5, play another commander. So like this is super good with partners because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of just stack this effect. And then if they kill one of your commanders, you're probably at 6 mana now and you can recast the 4-cost commander. Like there's a lot of really good value here. And yeah.
And it's just something that red does. It's random advantage. Potentially, I guess. So yeah, or if your commander already has Cascade.
Double Cascade. My next card pairs really well with one of Chris's previous ones, and it's Kengi, Sky Warden, 3 white for a 3/3 legendary creature bird wizard. has flying and vigilance, and then whenever Kangi attacks, attacking creatures with flying get +2/+0 until end of turn. And whenever Kangi blocks, blocking creatures with flying get +0/+2 until end of turn. So there's a little bit of a flying synergy theme going on in this set, and it's something Magic's kind of been moving to in the past couple sets as well. Um, and so this kind of is just a good commander for that strategy. And I like that you get the bonuses both ways since Kangi has vigilance. So you don't have to choose to attack or not.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a cool effect. Um, it's great for people that want to play a blue white deck but don't want to play a super control deck. And
so this card's not for you, Cameron.
It is not for this is not a Dragonlord Edgertai card.
It really is kind of though at the same time. It has a place in there potentially. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're going in
my Dragon Tribal and just make it flying tribal.
Right. So like my Dragonlord Ojutai deck is like, I mean, as far as like a control deck goes, is relatively low power level because it's intended to be more political with what it counters and things like that. That is
except for Cameron, it's hard to be political when most of the commander games you play are 1-on-1.
Right, that's what I was about to say. It's not intended to be played 1-on-1.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that it's really good in that sense because like I run things like Ojutai's Command, which is not a good card, but it says Ojutai in it, so I play it. And so it definitely has its shell there, or a place there in that like lower powered shell, more trying to have fun, and again counter the important things. So
in multiplayer games, otherwise you're just getting countered everything.
Yeah, then we're just countering everything.
Then we're just countering everything.
So, Chris, what's your next card?
My next card is my artifact, which I obviously opened incorrectly. I picked Commander's Plate. I love dedicated commander artifacts. Or equipment artifacts in this case. Commander's Plate is a 1-cost artifact that equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I like this a lot.
I like that protection from anything that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, depending, like, I mean, obviously players are gonna, there's gonna be overlapping color identities amongst your play group. I hope. But in those situations where it's like, oh, I have protection from everyone right now. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
Also has like this can also equip to any creature for 5. So it's kind of expensive equip cost unless you're equipping your commander where it costs 3. So if you have a 2-cost commander.
Yep. Play this on 1, your commander on 2, equip it on 3, and attack for a bunch with protection.
Yep. Also, it gives that keyword protection if you're equipping it
for your Chroma.
For your Chroma. Or your Chroma's partner, I guess. Not only is it +3/+3 already, now it's getting the +1/+1 for each keyword on it. It just sounds like fun. Granted, like these aren't like crazy mechanics. Like this is just thing. You let it succeed. Yay. Look at this giant creature. Yeah. And it's just very straightforward. But
yeah, I'll say this card is really where I want commander power level to be. Like, we're having fun. We're putting on this equipment. Like, are we going infinite with Thrasios? No. And that's where the party's at.
Yep.
Speaking of the party, my next card is a bit wonky because I think they picked the weirdest way to say what this ability is. But it's Bell Borka, Spectral Sergeant, 2 red-white for a legendary creature, Spirit Soldier. It's a star 5. And the abilities read, note the converted mana cost of each card as it's put into exile. Bell Barca's power is equal to the greatest number noted for it this turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So basically, its power is the highest CMC card that was exiled this turn. But because it's like this weird, you got to note it, you got to do all of this stuff. Like, I really like this card, but man, it's wonky.
The text on it is definitely weird, but it pairs so well with what Red's been doing so
Mm-hmm.
much of, and that's why I like him.
Yeah.
Is you know all those cards that you've been running in your red decks that allow you to play your opponent's decks too, or everyone exiles the top card of the deck at the start of your turn. You can
Mm-hmm.
cast those cards, pay mana as goes any cost. Well, now you're also getting the advantage that the highest CMC spell is determining your commander's power.
Yeah. And then, of course, since this is in white, you can also play cards like Swords to Plowshares, Oblivion Ring effects,
Yes.
all of
Mm-hmm.
those types of things are the way to not have to rely on that randomness to hit a really good card.
Yep.
So this is definitely like a kind of more controlly red white aggro. Like,
It has a lot, like you can do a lot with this, and I like this
yeah.
because it's not your traditional Boros mechanic where it
Mm-hmm.
focuses on the weird things that red and white have been doing. So white has always done a really good job at exiling things, right?
Right.
um and also that a lot of the white cards that do good jobs at exiling in like your more constructed formats outside of Commander aren't as popular in Commander, but now they have a place potentially. um and now all the red crazy things you've been doing, the red fun things, as I like to call them, because red's probably my favorite color in Commander right now. Actually, in Magic in general, never used to be, but now you're doing like all the top of the deck shenanigans, playing everyone's cards and getting some crazy things. But yeah, now you have like the situational. You have a big CMC creature. Let's exile that. Now my creature is now my commander is this big power creature that's gonna hit you.
Yeah. Said I really
Yes.
like this card. And then obviously that last effect, the outpost siege style impulsive draw, exile the top card you can play at this turn. Is also just really good card advantage. Like it's very red in the sense that you're not quite sure what you're going to get, and you have to use it that turn, so it can definitely mix up
Or
your
it goes
plan.
away. Yep.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, any commander that says at the beginning of your upkeep potentially draw a card, like that's pretty good. And
Yeah.
so
I mean, yeah, the top deck thing, yes. But if you're trying to plan with red in your deck, stop.
you're doing it wrong.
Your goal is it's my turn.
We're
Let me
smashing
do
it.
everything, see what I can do, and I'm swinging. It's like, oh, I'm going to hold this so I can do this. No, that's not red. You hold things when they're, I'm swinging. In response, I do this. Combat trick. That's what red does.
Your chromas will.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to have to build a Boros deck.
Yeah, I really like this guy. Chris, what's your next card?
Since you did red white, I did red black. Rakdos. And I just like this guy too. Again, the red's just doing crazy things. So I picked Blim, the comedic genius. He is a legendary creature imp. He is a 4-cost 4/3, so he costs 2, a black, and a red. And he has flying because he's an imp. But bulk of his text, whenever Blim, comedic genius, deals combat damage to a player, that player gains control of target permanent you control. Then each player loses life and discards cards equal to the number of permanents they control but don't own.
I really like this guy too.
He's just fun. And I love that this is kind of a Rakdos thing lately. I mean, we saw Xancha. So, and that's really why I wanted to pick this, because this is a fun card that I either figure out how to either use and then put Xancha in, or put in Xancha in general. I think he's a better commander, honestly, but I just like Xancha. And there's just fun things that you can do. It's also very political, which I really like about Rakdos, is it gets this like, It's like, look, you're gonna lose life for me doing this, but it's like, so you can aid someone that's a little behind, so you can do the group sluggy hug deck type
Mhm.
situations. Like, hey, here's a land, or here, take one of my things. It's gonna hurt you down the road, but might get you started, and you remember where you got that. Or
Yeah.
humble defector, or
Yeah.
any of those
This is
things.
so good. I mean, with any token makers too, like make any sort of like non-flying tokens, then you can give those to your opponents, and then they're going to start taking a bunch of damage from them. And so, and I like that. One of the things that this card does is it punishes unfun play strat patterns, which is the like, I'm going to steal all your stuff deck. And so, because like if you play that, okay, you played a bunch of cards at the top of my deck. You like, it's not capsize. It's commandeer. Like as
Commandeer's
counters.
one, and then there's also one where you're pulling, like, yeah, insurrection.
Yeah,
Um, there's
there's all
lots of
these.
steal effects.
Yeah, and then there's again a certain black card that does not appear on either of our lists. That lets you play cards that control your opponent's searches and play those cards. But it also punishes that play style of like, if you're going to take all my stuff, I'm going to just hit you for damage with those things.
We should also mention that Blim hits you if you control anything you don't own,
This is true.
which is what Red's been doing a lot of.
Yeah, it's a very Rakdosy thing.
Yep. So it's like I like it because it's evenly spread. So, but like the color set it's in is also good at stealing things. So watch yourself if you're playing this. You got to play that. You got to build this deck very specifically. But he's gonna be fun. He's gonna be fun. He's gonna be fun. I like him.
My next card honestly isn't a card that you have to play very specifically. So it kind of just does a bunch of good stuffy things. And that's Hamza, Guardian of Arshan, for 4 green white, legendary creature, Elephant Warrior. He's a 5/5. And has this spell cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Then creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So before we get into the card, I gotta say that art is amazing. This is probably one of my favorite Loxodons in the game. And I was thinking before this, Rune's a rhino, not an elephant, but man, Rune wishes it was as cool as Hamza. Like, so art aside, this does a couple things I really like in Commander. One, it reduces its commander cost.
Yep.
So like, that's super good. And then two, it then rewards you more by reducing the cost of other things. And then the third thing that I really like is that since +1/+1 counters is such a strong strategy already, it does not itself provide +1/+1 counters, which I really like. Because like that very much I think would be one of those, like, this creature, like imagine this card had like convoke and then like the venerated Loxodon, where you convoke and then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that helps pay for it. Like, oh man, that's not what we need.
That's
like
infinite.
that's just
That's like there's probably a very easy infinite strategy
right.
paired with a creature like that.
Right.
And you, yeah.
And so, like I said, I really like that this doesn't do that. That being said, you get enough creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, you're casting Eldrazi for free. So like there is that.
What?
But but I do really enjoy this card. And I definitely want to try to find a home for it somewhere. But it's unfortunately the inverse of my Marchesa deck. So
yeah, just build it. Duh.
Duh. Oh, Chris, what is your next card?
Speaking of +1/+1 counters, it's my first elf. And it was really hard not just to throw all the elves in.
Yes.
But Numa, Jiraga Chieftain, is a 2 and a green legendary creature elf warrior. It's a 2/2 with partner. But the reason why I like her is because she goes in pretty much my primary elf decks. With the ability of, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay XX When you do, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target elves. Yes. Now I don't have to worry about being mana flooded.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I was just about to
also,
say, Chris, it sure would be convenient if elves gave you mana.
what? You mean when I have a Elvish Archdruid that taps for 20 mana?
Right. It sure would be really convenient, Chris, if you had a mana payoff.
If I had a mana payoff that's recurring,
Yeah.
um, seems like that's a good method. This
Mm-hmm.
card is so good in my primary elf deck for one because of that. Obviously, the very large mana tappers, Elvish Piper, Elvish Archdruid, anything like that. Payoff when you're just not getting the card, like any additional cards. If you have Drag Out, it's great. It's a great place to dump mana. For one, it's a great place to dump mana when you're waiting to be able to kicker another spell in Halar. Just because you're getting additional +1 encounters on Halar. And then when you do get that kicker spell, it's that
Mm-hmm.
much more powerful from Halar.
Right.
So I really like Numa Draga Chieftain. It's not the best, but it's great in the decks that I use her in. And also, she pairs well with a lot of the other black and green elves. If you are doing her as one of the partners, there's a lot of cool mechanics and cool things you can build around. In the Golgari elves camp now, my favorite thing is the number of black elves they printed.
Mm-hmm. That makes me really happy that they're branching elves out. I mean, we've had like black elves before, but I'm really excited that they're branching out into having that be more of a thing.
It's a little easier to get to fix your mana curve a little bit, or balance out your two colors,
Mm-hmm.
which I definitely need to do. At least in my Golgari elf deck, my Nathi elves. But I don't know, that deck needs to be rebuilt now because I have so many options. I wish though they would focus on some of the expansion of the elves into other colors a little more, because there's some like risks. If we can get more white elves, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Or red elves.
Yeah, I'll say like in general, that's one of my favorite things is when we see a tribe that's associated with one color start to get a lot of creatures in the other color. So like we saw that on Ixalan with Merfolk, or we start to see a lot of even like mono green Merfolk.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And I like the idea that ultimately, granted, yes, there's similar, like there's these races that exist on multiple planes, but their approach to life and everything is completely different than our original conception of them too. I like the lore that gets built around when you bring the creatures into other colors.
Completely agree. More of that, please, Wizards of the Coast. My next card could be your favorite elf if you wanted it to be. And that is Sakashima of 1,000 Faces for 3 and a blue. Legendary creature, human rogue. It's a 3/1, has partner, and then enters the battlefield. It says, you may have Sakashima enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities. Then says, the legendary rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. So this is like, for all the grief I give partner, this is what I love. And it's just, what if my partner deck really just had one commander?
But and I played two of them.
And I just played two of them.
Attract. Like, if only Attracts had partner.
Right. And so I just love the shenanigans of this card. Of like, I was hoping we might have a little bit different setup, but the elf that you picked doesn't work great if you have two of them. But there's so many cool commanders that like doubling them up like is a really strong ability.
Like, I mean, copy of Chroma.
Right.
Now you have the other creature.
Yes, that they can all get each other. Yes. I really like where your head's at.
Just saying. Now Chroma gets its own. Now it finally gets its own ability, and now it's a 10/10.
I also really like where you're at with the mana that we have for this deck. But
Just all the mana.
yes. Chris, don't let your dreams just be dreams. Um, but yes, like exactly what you just said. Like I just love that you can play to a chroma. Like you can play like it's just like again, this is the power level I wanted the original partners to be at. Like this is I'm sure there's so much shenanigans that you can get up to with the legendary rule doesn't apply to permanents you control.
There's things that we haven't thought of that are just gonna
But
be go too far, and you're gonna be like, I hate
right,
this.
right. But at the same time, it's bananas and I love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
So so obviously, like this is super good with other clone effects, things like that. If you have the ability, I'll throw out one of my other cards or my other decks is Brutaclad, where you have the ability to turn your tokens into other tokens. So like you have this as a second copy of Brutaclad. You somehow make another legendary token, and then now you just have a bunch of copies of things. Like I don't know. I just love where this card's at.
what is it? Is it Westvale? No, Westvale flips. Never mind. I can't think
Oh,
of
are
it.
you thinking Dark Depths?
Yes.
Yes, Chris, I like where your head's at now. So for listeners, Dark Depths gives you, if you remove all the ice counters from it, it gives you a 2020 legendary Marit Liege token with flying and indestructible, I think. And yeah, so you just play this, get another one of those. Like, oh man, the shenanigans.
It's like, oh, bloop bloop, because it is a legendary token, but now it doesn't apply. So
Yeah. Again, I just love where this card's at.
going to my sleep dot deck.
And Chris, that brings us to our last card for our Commander Legends top 10. What do you got for us?
Also an elf. As we mentioned, elves got a lot of Golgari support, which is great for my actual elf tribal deck. But this one specifically is just phenomenal. It's good. It works really well in maintaining a certain ebb and flow and balancing, making sure you got recursion and things like that. So it is Nadir, Agent of Duskanel. It's a 6 cost for a 3/3. So, but gotta ignore that for a little bit. So it's 5 and a black. Obviously, it has partner because it's a legendary creature, Elf Warrior. But whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Nadir, Agent of Duskanel. Okay, so I mean, in general, elf decks, if you're not making a lot of elf tokens,
mm-hmm.
are you really? I mean, yeah, you technically are, but
Mm-hmm.
you gotta get all the tokens. And then ultimately, though, it has an upside. So if you're losing tokens, you're pumping up your commander, but eventually they're gonna want to get rid of him too. But when they do, what happens? You create a number of 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens equal to its power.
Yep. This guy's sweet.
Yep. This is definitely my favorite black elf, or at least has the most synergy with my other elves. So this one is definitely going to make its way into a couple of my decks, and yeah, it's just nice. That also, like, if you get him big enough, or you can even pump him like other ways right before a possible board wipe or anything like that, you reestablish a board state right away. Boom.
Yeah, I gotta say that's pretty cool. I think that'll be one of the big strengths of this card is that you could play like a lot of the black board wipes and wipe the board, get a bunch of tokens, like, or you just don't have to be afraid of board wipes. It's really good. I think they're typically called like rattlesnake cards. They're cards where you're basically like showing your opponents what you're gonna do, and if they try to stop it, like they're gonna get bit.
Yep.
So like this is a great one of those. It's like you can wipe the board and kill all my creatures, but I'm gonna just get more creatures, and then recast Nadir, and then when those tokens die, he gets pumped up again.
My biggest thing about Nadir is, so for running a token deck, it's also great anti-Elish Norn.
True, true.
because now you're not like now your automatic triggers against an Elesh Norn where you're getting tokens that are just going away anyway. Now you're getting an advantage on that.
Mm-hmm. Very good
So
point.
he is sorry. That's just one of the things that I had. Like that's a card that shuts down my deck often,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I also really like Nadir. It prevents that if you can get him out. Now you're getting you. It's like okay, I'm gonna keep making my tokens even if they're not on the board. Nadir is getting big. Eventually, something's got to give.
Right. And then if you're not like Chris, um, I don't know why you would ever do this, but one of the things you can do is you don't have to actually run this in an elf deck.
It's true.
Like you that getting elf tokens can just be an upside. It's like this is good with in a black white like spirits list. Like it's really good. There's so many good I forgot the other combo that I was thinking of.
There's a lot of tokens.
Slimefoot for
Oh
Saprolings.
yes, Saprolings,
like
fungus, fungi.
Gov, Guru of Spores. Like there's so many good other tokeny decks that work really well with that first effect.
Yeah, you're just going to replace them eventually with elves are going to be on the field at some point. Right. That's fine, but you know, tokens.
And then also if you're playing this with any of like Ashnod's Altar or things like that where you can sacrifice tokens for mana, like it's really good in that Aristocrats shell because you can sack your tokens, make a bunch of mana, sack your Nadir, get those tokens, sacrifice those tokens, like, and you can just get triggers on triggers on triggers with this guy.
Yep.
So it's a very cool effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially at an uncommon level, this guy has so much potential. And between is definitely my favorite elf from the set so far. Not for just because like even standing alone, he is a really cool commander potentially, especially partnered with several of the cards in the set. But great addition to a lot of decks, depending on how you want to build, does pretty much anything that black wants to do. Or works and complements anything black wants to do. Yeah. But there's so many good cards. Oops.
Chris, I think that brings us to the end of our top 10 Commander Legends cards. Chris, I'm about to send you a picture in chat or in the show notes that I would like for us to put up on stream. That did not copy the link. And so this is going to be part of our post-show chat and is my most disappointing card from Commander Legends. So if you are not in chat, you'll miss this or check the VOD later. But we're going to have that as a post show. And so if you are listening, as always, you can find us on our social media, which is OneGeek411. And you can join our Discord server if you want to chat with us between episodes. You can send an email to 1stgeek411@gmail.com if you have any questions or any show topics that you'd like us to discuss. You can catch the episode live, 6:45 Mountain Time on twitch.tv/1geek411 and be part of that post-show chat. And then you can find the video later on our YouTube. Then if you're a podcast listener, you can rate, subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts and check out our show notes on our website, onegeek411.com, where you can find our sister podcast, Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust. And then, of course, you can find us on our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
And I'm not so foreign. Wash your hands.
I love you. Okay, Chris.